We're going to begin the, changed everything. We're going to begin the police station grant. Mr. Mahan with the Fire, Police, and Civil Defense Committee.
Thank you, sir. Council, I want to first apologize. I know this is coming late, and this is and apologize to the public for a late council meeting. And full disclosure, I got an email probably August 12th or 13th. This was coming. And so when it didn't appear on the agenda the last council meeting, I could have asked for it, and I did not. So I'll share some part in this being late. But Mr. Bourne, could you help us with where we're at on this grant?
And I would also like to say that Mr. Mahan is very kind, and we also share that there was some emails and it got lost, and I will also take part of the blame for this not being here. We managed to contact Senator Andrew Brenner, and as the governor and his staff were working with the legislature for the one-time payments, and we were able to get a $2 million grant from this one-time series of payments for the new police department, and that's where it is. Normally, when we apply for grants, we go through council to get authority to do that. But here, where it was a political decision to award this to us, we didn't have that. And so because of that, we're now asking you for the authority to sign the paperwork so that we can bring $2 million of state money into our planning for the new police department.
And this will need to go to its third reading this evening. There's a deadline on this.
We have to have it signed by the end of this month.
And when do we have to have it spent?
Yeah. It's 2 years plus a potential of an additional 2.
So where's the rest of the money going to come from to build the department?
We have been working with the United States Department of Agriculture on a low, about a less than prime loan. It's a very low rate, is one of the sources of income we're working on, but we've got a number of different things that the administration is working on to fund this. This is only part of the whole puzzle.
So I guess I'll re-ask the question. So you're working on a low-interest loan. Where will we get the money to make the payment on the loan then?
Well, this is to cover design. This money will cover the design, as I understand it. Is that correct?
I'll go ahead and jump in and add a little bit more context to this. I first want to piggyback on what Mr. Bourne said when he used the phrase, "This was a political decision." Want to add a little bit of context to that. $350 million was distributed to the House of Representatives, and $350 million was distributed to the Senate for them to disperse between their districts. I do want to express a great amount of thanks to Senator Brenner for getting us this money because our Senate district got well and above beyond what it would have traditionally got. We walked Speaker Stevens through our municipal building and the court, through the parking lot, and showed them and Senator Brenner the issues. There's something wrong with this microphone. Showed them the issues with with our facility and the need for this money, and they were able to work out a deal and make sure that we were able to get this. We do have a preliminary design from DLZ. We'd have to shore up that design specifically for the police department. The courthouse is still, the municipal building courthouse is still up for design. That we've rolled out a preliminary design, but that's nowhere near a final design. We're a lot further along in the process with the police department, and more specifically to get to construction. Of course, the proposed location is for the courthouse is on the square, and there's a lot of, environmental review and historic review and demolition and whatnot. The Syker Road location is literally we knock over a shed essentially, and we're there, right? Mrs. Woods mentioned, where's the rest of the money going to come from? We've talked to the USDA about that loan. We've talked about bonding. We've talked about financing this in a multitude of ways. Regardless, this has to be done, and this is where the administration and council is going to have to put its heads together and figure out a way to finance this and the court building along the way. I don't think this is news to anybody, as if you walk through that building, a semi can pass on North Gay Street and the building shakes. When it rains, water pours through window cracks. When it gets cold, the judge has to bust the water out of his toilet. So that building is in dire need. I mean, the parking lot's held up with 3/4 of a mile of steel, and we had to essentially kick the public out of it. It is in dire need of replacement, not repair, replacement. It is a money pit for the city. And probably, this is anecdotal, but a lot of the money that we spend just keeping it maintained could go toward a significant amount of that payment every year. We've spent, how much a month do we spend just in the electric bill? And I'd say electric because it does not run on gas. There are no gas utilities in that building
11 to 12,000 a month.
a month.
So this won't go for design? We've got a design.
We have
We have a preliminary
design.
design,
We have
yeah,
a,
You have a
we
picture?
have a planning document. We don't have
Yeah.
a design document yet.
yeah. Yeah. Has everybody seen that? Okay.
Yeah,
yeah.
We had public meetings on that.
Yes,
And I remember the presentation, and the chiefs worked on that, and we're hoping to get further grants using some of the facilities as shelters.
As a FEMA shelter,
Those
yeah.
kind of, as FEMA shelters. So that's, obviously, none of that's been finalized, but this $2 million is necessary seed money to begin to get that going. I think it's a good question, though. Are we allowed to use this to finish the planning, or do we not need this money to finish the planning? Is this,
I understand that the planning's done. There's planning, design, bid, build. And so we are,
excuse me, I think we're asking for just construction drawings. We don't have construction drawings, and that's going to cost money.
that will do that.
I think it says a lot that we had not just our Senator Brenner, who thought that this was important enough to fight for, because this money was not handed out willy-nilly at the State House or in the Senate, but also the guy in the House, the Speaker of the House, sorry, who came out and took his time to tour the facility. That's a huge amount to be allotted to just one single project. A lot of the dollar amounts that went out were not that big. I think it really speaks to the fact that they saw a dire need while they were here, and that this is an opportunity that we should not miss, because everybody knows that we need new facilities.
This is a project that was going to go forth regardless, and we essentially expressed the need to the state, and they agreed and were willing to give us $2 million to this project.
Well, I think to follow up here with Tammy's question is, I am all for building a new police department. I'm all for it. Before a courthouse would need to be built, you gotta have someplace to put the police department, and that's not the B&L Railroad building. But, I mean, I got a couple things. One is accountability for this being brought to council at the last minute. It has to be signed by the 30th? Which is what, next Monday or Tuesday or something like that? So that's late, which puts council in a bind for having discussion. And I get being lost in emails, but that's $2 million, and this is the grant money that we were awarded a month or two ago, 8 weeks ago, I think, that was in Knox Pages. So that's quite a bit of time to lose $2 million when we've been dealing with other issues with accounting and accountability in city government. And the other thing is, have there already been meetings with, because this started before I was on council, has the city had meetings with Pizzuti or any other type of construction companies to deal, because I guess where I'm at is, like I said, I'm all for building a police department, but I don't think this should be handled in-house. This needs to be actually handled by project engineers, people that know how to get projects done and get them done in time and on budget or within the budgeted amount, to where it is a lot of money we've got to come up with, more than $2 million. I mean, And council needs to be kept abreast of this entire process as we go through it, not just when the legislation comes forward to say, hey, council, we'd like to come up with another $5 or $6 million. Because I would think Pizzuti or someone has an idea of how much money it's going to cost to build this building. And here on council, I have not heard anything about that. And I think I've even asked that question before, of what is this stuff going to cost? And we haven't heard that. Now, I would like to congratulate the city of Mount Vernon, City School District, because I'm on a committee where they have 50 people going through a process over 4 or 5 months of community members that are analyzing and going through the whole thing of building or renovating or doing nothing with city schools. And it's a completely transparent, it's a completely public process that involves a variety of people with different skills to look at an issue and a problem. And I would like to see the city make sure that we're using some sort of a process similar to make sure that there's community buy-in into building the police department, which I think there would be. But, you know, we've got 2 issues that council voted on that are up for the ballot here in November. And if there's not enough votes to pass the police department, could the same thing happen where people disagree with spending a large amount of money on a new building if there weren't enough votes to make it to where it couldn't go to a ballot initiative? But I guess that's my concern. So I guess what I'm saying is this needs to be handled out of house and not handled within the city. This needs to be taken care of by a company that knows what they're doing to get projects done. Because I am frustrated with things being late and things not getting done and big cost overruns. And I would say any project that the city's working on, council needs to be kept abreast of things, not just, here, we've got 6 weeks now, and we'll go up to 3 readings and make a decision on spending $8 or $10 million.
Council, I'm over time. Any specific questions on the grant?
Just if somebody, before we vote, can answer the question, what did we say in the grant application we were going to spend specifically the $2 million on?
The,
Be helpful.
the agreement that the state gave us is for the entire project. It does not limit it to construction only. It can be part of the design.
Okay. Thank you.
And we did specifically, as a person that had his hand in writing the grant, we did include the entirety of the project as well, including the courthouse, to express the need of the problem.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
And Mr. President, if I may, I want to address Mr. Miller's. We did, after the announcement was made at the state, specifically you mentioned Pizzuti, the mayor and I had probably, a 2-hour conversation?
Informal.
Yeah, with Pizzuti. Of course, the process is that we'd have to release an RFQ, which Mr. Burren and I have discussed and I believe is drafted, but and we can release that within a month or 2 or sooner. But you know, to say that we would go immediately with Pizzuti would be, you know, improper. But
Sure.
That was a discussion that we had, and just to kind of get a better idea. So the proper way to do that would be with a project manager outside of the city.
And at least one other vendor too.
Yeah.
Not just Pizzuti.
No,
At least
I'm
one.
fine. I'm just using that as an example.
We've talked with at least one
Yeah.
other vendor too. so.
I think we have issues with getting things done. And we need to get things done to build trust in government and trust in the city.
Regardless of who we went with, a project of this scope would require, outside.
Okay, we're going to adjourn that committee meeting. We'll move now to Parks and Recreation. Mr. Miller for a park update.
All right. Mr. Mayor, if you could give us an update on what I had sent you about the American Heritage Park, where we're at with that and where it's going.
I have delegated this to Mr. Salyers since he has been intimately involved with this. So we have talked about it, and I know that there have been an update from the engineers department from you. So anyway,
Yep.
Tanner.
So, hello again. So, with regards to American Heritage Park, I know you asked about several instances or several park-related issues. With regard to American Heritage Park, recently, after talking to the Foundation Park Conservancy, the CA&C depot was in that lease agreement that's set to expire in 2026. We've been talking about how to move forward pretty closely with the Foundation Park Conservancy and what our role and what their role will be as we move forward into 2026. Part of that was to remove, we went ahead and worked with FPC to remove the CA&C depot from that lease now. So we have taken that out of their purview. And American Heritage Park, as you'll look in the resolution tonight, only asking for a first reading on that. What we want to, I think, the mayor and I and Mrs. Keener and Mr. Miller had a meeting with Olivia Toth with the CVB. We will invite her in to discuss the CVB's role at the CA&C depot. We're going to throw a lot of acronyms at you, so hang tight. That's government, right? But we're going to discuss the CVB's role in the CA&C depot, essentially serving as a welcome center for the city of Mount Vernon. We've talked about merchandise opportunities, being on the bike trail and, serving for the city. Talked about rotating exhibits for folks to come in and see. Additionally, I want to point out too on the map, the attached map as an exhibit on this piece of legislation. I'm trying to find. I think it's maybe 100 resolution 2024-100. That map was designed for an earlier. It was essentially included so you'd have a better idea of the layout. You'll see like river rentals and the what is called the Dan Emmett House. It's actually more of just a historic piece, and Dan Emmett never lived there. But you'll see some pieces around that, park benches and things like that. Those are not exactly specifically for that park, or even they don't necessarily even exist there. But just kind of give you a rough idea of what that area is. So we're looking at taking the entirety of that property and turning it into American Heritage Park, and investing in some appropriate memorials. We've talked about even establishing a veterans memorial over there to honor those that are killed in action or missing in action. Really making it true to its name, American Heritage Park.
Can I ask, this is a discussion I had with a couple of people, how did that name get chosen, come about?
So because of America 2050,
Yeah.
it's coming up, and because of Liberty Plaza that's going into place, that's the Statue of Liberty that we anticipate will be there on around the end of October, which coincidentally was when the actual Statue of Liberty was dedicated, October 28th. So we're hoping to have a dedication around that same time.
Okay, and I think,
Go ahead.
because I know Bruce is going to hold us to this time, just so, because I want to get to the splash pad too, but.
Sure.
So I think there's a plaque that goes on Statue of Liberty, some sort of placard. Mm-hmm. Is the city working on whatever's going to be written on that placard? Have you guys decided on that yet?
We have not talked specifically about the placard, but I imagine it will, honor the donors, and we'll probably talk to the donors about what will go on the placard.
Okay, yeah, because that's definitely something we want to make sure we have ready for the inaugural,
Sure.
for the champagne bottle breaking on the statue, or whatever we're going to do there.
Apple cider.
And you
Honor
answered
Johnny
the other
Appleseed.
question we had by email with council about the Veterans Memorial and the EMS stuff and all
Mm-hmm.
dealing with that situation. I appreciate that. That's great. Splash pad.
I
Where
can
we at
speak
on
to
the
that
splash
one.
pad?
I can speak to that one for you there. We have, everything has been submitted. We are still waiting the permit from the Industrial Division for Department of Commerce right now, and also Richland County is doing the plumbing, but we do have the area fenced off so we can begin the demo work, the tree removal and so forth. So that is, we will be breaking ground. But anyway, we look any day for the permit coming through.
Okay.
So-
And I know that's on the city's high priority list
It
to get
is.
done, because if not,
Yeah.
we are subject to those conditions.
It is.
Okay.
It is.
Another question I have, since it's all park related, checking a couple things, and these are quick, yes or no. That fitness equipment we talked about, have you got prices for installation yet?
We haven't got prices for installation, but we do have a quote for the actual fitness equipment. And we've talked with Jeff Durr about bringing in the relevant community partners on where that'll go.
Has any money, is money being moved between any of the parks or the PBL funds into the engineering department to help get things done, even small amounts? I mean, I know you guys have that leeway, but, one of my concerns being 40 years in that industry or that business is making sure our parks are funded and taken care of. And I've seen things that I hope would have been taken care of this summer, but I know from talking with Tom and Tanner, these are on the plan to deal with over the next winter and year. And But I want to make sure that the Parks Department, they haven't been shorted on to where we're taking money from a project they were planning on doing to not get done for engineering getting done.
If money, so the auditor has the authority to move $3,000 without the consent of council, is that correct?
Within the budget lines of a department.
Within a single
So
department.
any money that would be moved from, say, Parks Department to engineering would have to come through council no matter what the amount.
Okay.
So if that money was moved, it was improperly moved.
So it would have to come through council. Okay. Then the last, I'll leave that what we talked about.
West Foundation?
No, yeah, I talked to.
You're okay with West?
I'm good. I'm hoping that dirt in that project will be done by December like was promised.
To publicly
So we
say
can
it,
get that done.
I have given Mr. Miller my word that that dirt will be moved by the end of this calendar year, and a meeting will be held with FPC and relevant community partners about the pollinator garden, and we have a lot of good plans for that
Yes,
area.
we do. And I stress that, and that's one of the most smallest insignificant things in city government right now. But it was a promise that I want to see kept to help build that trust back that things are going to get done when they're said to be
The
done.
Shade Tree and Beautification Committee and the Bee City Committee have done a lot of
Yes.
good work, and I think that is going to be the culmination of their work. So
Yes, I think that'll work out well. And then Riverside, as we're going through Riverside, and we got the CBDG and we got the other funds. I would encourage the city to keep in contact with Mel and myself and the rec board if there is any discussion of moving because there were discussions about placement of playground equipment, pickleball court, all that stuff I thought was done already. So I would encourage you guys to talk to me and Mel for ideas or suggestions if there's any changes. So we can avoid anything happening later in life of that project to where you would have council people saying, well, wait a second here, that's not what we discussed. Or that was not in the original plan, and now it's another $500,000. So I would encourage the city to make sure they communicate with me and Mel about that
I
project.
believe,
So-
just for clarity, I believe the redesign after the library portion of the library pavilion portion of the splash pad was removed.
Yep.
There was some re-engineering, redesign on the splash pad, and that kind of changed the dynamic of the playground and just some context.
Cool, thanks, that's all I have. I think we're right at about our minute.
I have a question.
Okay, any other questions?
If it's about
Since we're
pickleball, I
talking
quit.
about Parks and Recreation, when Mr. Salyers was the Parks person, a year and a half ago, we had a field trip with City Council over to the Babe Ruth Park, and we said that building wasn't safe.
Yep.
Where are we with that?
We anticipate demolishing that building at the end of this year.
And also, we had a concern with the grade of the field and all that stuff. Where are we with all those discussions we had when we had that field trip?
Yep. So the master parks plan was, I believe, designed with great intentions, but we have, as a city, failed to actually follow through with that master parks plan. So I have worked with Mr. Hinkle, and we have a design, or we have plans. I don't want to say, but God, we have a design. But we have plans to demolish 3 of the concessions announcement booths because they're not in compliance with the local health department. What's going to essentially happen is they're going to be taken down to gravel. We're going to replumb. So in the meantime, Tammy, you can do earmuffs right now. We're going to have food trucks service. We're going to have food trucks service the leagues until we can organize a remodel essentially, and we're going to have to go back to the drawing board for Memorial Park.
So where's the money going to come for reconstruction of those facilities?
Well, that will have to be explored in the capital budget, whether it's in 25 or 26.
Go ahead, Janice.
I'm very excited about you moving that
So are several people.
off of
yeah.
the square because that has not worked out.
Right.
You will do the bricks
Yeah.
like they are, so the people wanted to be placed by other people. You'll make sure that you do that
Maintain that.
because, that it was very important to people. They wanted to be by certain people and the order and so forth.
Mrs. Seavold is referring to an email that I sent. We have explored the idea of taking the Veterans Walk and taking it to American Heritage Park. The idea, and I know that that may raise some eyebrows for some people, the Veterans Walk on the public square does take up a significant amount of space on the public square. It's also supposed to be kind of hallowed ground. You're not supposed to walk on the bricks. You're supposed to, show up to observe that, quiet remembrance. It's on maybe one of the loudest places in downtown. People literally stand on it and have concerts on it. That's no way to honor and respect people who have passed away and served our country. So if we, establish American Heritage Park, we can put it over in a place where it can be, honored and respected as it should be.
And will you put poles so that maybe you can put the banners up?
I don't know about the banners, but I think what a lot of those memorials do is traditionally have flag poles that honor all of the branches. And in the design of Liberty Plaza, we included a large American flag that kind of sits at a perfect angle right behind Lady Liberty in downtown, where if you wanted to get a selfie, you could get all that done. So that was intentionally designed. So
Great.
yeah.
I'm happy to hear that, because that's going to make a lot of people happy.
We're taking every bit of that into consideration. So, and that's
We
that's
made
not
a
the only
mistake when
thing.
we put it there. It sounded good at the time, but
Sure.
with the concerts and everything, it
Yeah.
hasn't worked
Right.
out.
Yep.
So good.
Forgive me, you're tired, you're poor, you're humble mess who's yearning to be free. All right.
Happy to do so.
We're going to adjourn that part of the Parks Committee. We're going to move now back to Parks and Recreations with Mr. Miller for their service event.
Right, so I found out about this today, but we have some distinguished people from the Career Center, from the ROTC program, that want to talk about the Servitas event that's going to be its second year at Ariel Foundation Park. It was very successful last year, and if you would go ahead and explain that to us, please.
Okay, good evening. We just want to take up a couple minutes of your time and let you know what we're doing. We have been out at the Air Foundation Park for the last couple of years doing our Raider competition, which started 10 years ago. And now we are expanding that. And we're going to talk a little bit about what Servitas is, and then I'm going to let the three students do all the talking, really, after I do a little bit of the introduction. And then to explain what Servitas is Servitus, if you look at the root word, the root word comes from Latin, and it's to serve, or to serve others, or to be a servant to others, or to serve. Our goal is to take our competition, which is really just our ROTC Raider competition, and turn it into a celebration of people in the community that serve, not just the military personnel, the uniformed personnel, but everybody that lives in that service world. I mean, we have so many civic clubs. We have so many people that are out there serving every day. I mean, one of my favorite people that I always talk about is Bruce Jacklin. I mean, what he does with MTV Arts is incredible. And he just does that out of the goodness of his heart. And it's just really, really good to see that. And we want to maybe take our competition and help recognize those people. And then,
Next
yeah,
slide.
yeah, go ahead. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, and then we can go on to the next one. Okay, this is our Raider competition. Our Raider competition, a lot of people think of it as a Tough Mudder, where, the more mud we're getting into and the more dirty we're getting, the more excited we are. But we learn a lot from our activities, and that's why I'm going to bring you three up, and you guys can just tell them a little bit about it.
Just tell me when you need the slide changed, okay?
Okay, please change the slide.
There you go.
Good evening. My name is Cadet Emma McGee, and I'm actually the Raider Commander. This is my team. I'd just like to thank you guys for letting us use the Ariel Foundation Park, and I want to say that it's really taught me how to be a leader, putting together the teams, making some really hard decisions with friends, and I just wanted to say thank you for that, and it's really helped me evolve as a leader for this opportunity.
Next slide. Okay.
So I'm Cadet Scott. One thing that the Raider team has taught me is perseverance. I mean, the mental and physical challenge that it puts you through is extremely difficult. You really have to push yourself, because when you're running a 5K, which is in that right picture, it's not easy when you're in boots and it's hot and you're going up, down, rough terrain. It's just that mental battle to push yourself and not just give up halfway through. It's really difficult. And when you go into a fitness team without a very good fitness score, like I was not very fit. It's really difficult to get through running and carrying very heavy objects. It's not easy. So the perseverance and the willing to keep going, it's difficult, and it's really helped a lot with my future and me as a person now.
Next slide. I'm Cadet Fleckenstein, and Rare is like one of the most fun things that you can do. I mean, you show up to practice, and you're immediately flipping tires, making bridges out of rope, climbing a wall, and you show up to, it's also a sport, so you show up to competitions, you compete for trophies, but you also need teamwork, and communication is like the most important thing that you can have there. And you can't have communication if everyone's miserable. And you have to know your team really well as friends and your team. So you have to communicate with them very well and improvise over every single challenge. Even if you've done 100 times, something can change at a competition, and you have to be able to tell your team, like, hey, we got to change this. So, yeah.
Come back up here. Last slide. Is there any questions that you have for me or for the two?
May I ask what your future plans are?
I want to go into the medical field in the Air Force as an enlisted. That's my dream. That's what I'm working towards. And yeah, but I think that you'll be way more interested into what Ariana is doing.
Okay.
So I'm a senior in high school right now, and recently I've been applying to many ROTC scholarships for college. I want to go through college, preferably Air Force ROTC, and get my criminology degree, and then go into preferably Air Force as a military police, and hopefully as an officer. And I've been working really hard on it, and I'm really excited for it. I'm very hopeful right now.
I don't have one clear path I'm going to go down yet, but I've looked a lot at aviation or something along the lines of that, and I would really love to do that, but I don't know yet. So,
Is there any other questions?
How do you get all those pretty patches?
I was wondering that too.
Yeah, I
So
want those patches.
these are ribbons, and these are our achievements. These are things that we've worked very hard for, time and dedication and stuff like that. So these are all just different things that I've done, different things that she's done, different things that he's done that we've gotten ribbons for as a reward for our hard work, along with, if you see the little leaves, that's how many times we've gotten the ribbon.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, my son-in-law did ROTC through Mount Vernon and did military police in the Air Force. It will serve you well.
Is there anything else?
Medical, what are you going to do medically?
So I wanted to go in as originally a combat medic in the Air Force or a combat medic in the Army, because that's specifically where they specialize. But now I'm leaning towards more of like hospital bound, more of like I want to be ER, but that's an officer route. So I'm trying to go enlisted, work my way up, try to figure out my main thing, and then go in as an officer, as a nurse for the ER.
How much training do you guys do for one of these competitions?
So we have practice every Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it's basically from 2:45 to 4. We're working from the moment you walk in to the moment you leave. So it's just those hours of, we have runs, we have testing, we have PT on Fridays, we have all sorts of things, flipping tires like you said, or simply like 4-man push-up, things like that, simple things that really help us through this. And since this one is at home, we're going to be running those like treks and stuff in the courses through.
I like how you said that the 4-man push-up was a simple thing.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
There's 3 of you. If we could get Mr. Severance down, you could demonstrate that.
I don't know if I can do all that. I got to keep these pristine.
How many teams?
We have 2 teams. We have an A and a B team.
How many teams will participate in the event, you think?
In the event, what do you
And the service to this event?
like how many teams?
How many schools, programs?
A lot. Like I don't know specifically, but I'm sure Colonel would know. 21? 29 teams.
29 teams.
29 teams. All around.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to but can you talk about all branches of the military? Recruiters are going to be there. Our police department's going to be there, and our fire department's going to be there as well. So it's a time for everybody to come out. I mean, this is quite a
What
spectacle.
date is it?
The 12th.
October the
12th.
12th, yes,
October
thank you.
12th.
October the 12th.
And it is a public event, and the public is encouraged to come and watch
Yes, sir.
because, you know, as a whole, you know, everyone's very proud of our ROTC graduates, which you will all be graduates, I'm sure, and participants. We're all very proud of you because you're doing things above and beyond regular high school and other career center projects. And plus, you'll be setting up the courses and working out there to prepare it for all of these other teams that come through. And I know last year they worked very hard to get that whipped into shape a little bit, so hopefully it'll be a little easier on you all this year. But it is a public event. Hopefully we'll have nice weather, cool enough where you're running, you're not sweating so bad.
I hope it
But
rains.
we should encourage people to
It rained
come
last
and
year.
attend and watch all of the hard work that all of these students have put into this. Because these are young people and these are the future. So these are our high school students that are doing this. And as the police chief can say, he's been through police academies and military. I only went through police academies, and there's a world of difference running in boots and fatigues with a rucksack than it is just running 5 miles wearing tennis shoes and shorts. So I have great admiration for anybody that can do that.
Thank you. Anything else?
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for coming and
Thank
talking
you.
to us.
Is that it, Mr. Miller?
That is it. I yield. I'm done.
We're going to adjourn the Parks and Recreation Committee. We're now in recess until 7:30 PM. We'll begin the legislative portion of the meeting. legislative portion of September 23rd meeting of Mount Vernon City Council. Mr. Hill, please call the roll.
Mr. Miller.
Here.
Mrs. Seabolt.
Here.
Mr. Severance.
Here.
Mr. Mahan.
Here.
Mrs. Woods.
Here.
Mr. Ruckman.
Here.
Ms. Keener.
Here.
We are in session, and I'd like to welcome Austin Beckett from Revived Church to come up to the podium and say the invocation. Please rise for the invocation, remain standing for the pledge. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for the opportunity. So Lord, we thank you for just another day to be able to serve you. And God, I just pray blessing upon our city council. God, you bless this men and women as they serve our city. Lord, I pray you just give them wisdom, direction, and God, as they serve this city, they would do it in an honorable way that will honor you. So we ask this in your name. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Council, in your packet are the minutes from the September 9th meeting. Are there any additions or corrections? Then I'd ask for a motion for approval.
So move.
Second.
Then moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. They are approved. Mr. Hill, any petitions or communications?
There are none.
Council, in your packets are the minutes from committee meetings for your review. I see no liquor control license this evening or proclamations. We do have 3 people speaking on matters of city concern. The first is Russ Mincer from Communications Director. Please come to the podium and state your name and address. You have 4 minutes.
Hey, my name's Russ Mincer, 708 Knowles Drive here in Mount Vernon. Good evening, members of the City Council. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I want to discuss the importance of adding a dedicated communication person for our city, a role that could significantly enhance our engagement and residents of Mount Vernon in many different areas. Like, for example, improve the overall transparency of Mount Vernon. It promotes Mount Vernon as a tourist stop. For example, did you know the bike path, the Ohio Erie Trail from Cincinnati to Cleveland, Mount Vernon's right in the middle of it, and we attract 1,000 or so bicyclists per year. So tourism. The dog fountain. We go past it many, many times, but stop down there and talk to people, and most of the people that sit around there are from out of town, that they've seen it somewhere on Facebook or Instagram or somewhere. Just by using those 2 examples that's shared by common citizens on a basis is just not enough. We can do better. Many cities in Ohio have successfully established a communication person that promotes their cities in a digital world such as Facebook, Instagram. But in Mount Vernon, the press releases aren't enough. You know, the departments that send out the press release, let's say, for example, the water department, it's just not enough. We need to get communications out there, and that's where the communication person will come out. We can't keep doing the same old way. A world we live in a week ago is different than what it is today. A world we lived in 5 minutes ago is different. Right before I came up to your meeting at 10 till 7, I promoted on my little Facebook page that I'm going to go speak to you guys. So that was roughly 47 minutes ago. I got over 100 likes and many, many comments. That's the power of social media. Can you do that? Can you do that at a city council meeting? I don't think so. I think you need a communication person. If you want to be a successful city, what's the most important thing in business is communication. I ran a business for 40 years here in town. It was Domino's Pizza. And best thing I can tell you I did was communication. You win with communication. What does communication person do? It increases community involvement in real time and truthful information. It promotes stronger relationships between the local government and their residents. It fosters a greater sense of community by actively promoting local events and initiatives that the city of Mount Vernon promotes. By responding to community concerns in real time, We can use that social media. We can use that stuff. It's just not digital communications. It's in-town meetings. It's meet people, meet the mayor, meet the city council. Right before your meeting, I'm sitting on the steps, and police officer Sarah came up and asked what I was doing there. Engaging with her, talking to her is a pleasant conversation. That's what more citizens need. But unfortunately, on social media, you see more negative than you do positive. I think we could turn that around. Why we need that, you said? It brings in tourist dollars. I wholeheartedly believe in this. It's an investment. It's an investment Mount Vernon needs. It's an investment in our current resident. It can promote new businesses to come in town, to set up shop, promote families to move to Mount Vernon. I did that in 1989. I brought my family here, and that's way before Facebook. Last thing I want to say is I applaud the city council, what you guys are doing in proposing a property tax thing. Again, I understand what you're doing, but I guarantee if you did a poll, I would say 80% of the people in Mount Vernon have no clue what the tax increase is for. While we send out press release, it's not enough. It's not enough. I love to keep talking to you, but I only got 4 minutes. I'm just a goat rancher. I'm not applying for this job. I do not want this job. But if you're interested, I'd love to tell you more about what my vision is. I'm a goat rancher. I have 8 goats, and they love cookies. And that's my rule. Mm-hmm. Last thing is about the truth. I just heard this over and over again. The Cooper Corner, I call it, is so great. It's gonna enhance Mount Vernon. But there's so many people out there that think it's Mount Vernon City dollars that's doing it. It's not. You know what I mean? Our communication person can tell that. Or the truth about the Edgewood extension. You name it, we could do it. We could do a better job. And if you're interested, you know how to get a hold of me. I'm the Goat Ranch. I'm the guy with the cookies. Thank you.
Thank you. I knew you couldn't do it in 4 minutes. You were 21 seconds over.
Okay, well, you said you weren't going to time me.
Okay. All right. Okay, next we have Lisa Lloyd. Come to the podium, state your name and address.
Thank you. I'm Lisa Lloyd, 513 West Highland Drive, Howard, Ohio. I'm here representing Experience Mount Vernon. I'm the current board chair. I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about one of the programs that we are running in conjunction with the city of Mount Vernon, our banner campaign. So I know that you have heard a little bit about that over the past couple of weeks, so I just wanted to clear the air and get some facts on the table for you. I'm sure you're all familiar with the banners that are throughout downtown Mount Vernon, and we showcase cultural and civic events with those activities, and also just general public interest events. So we offer these to both nonprofits and businesses to promote a cause or public interest topic. We have 54 pole banners currently throughout downtown Mount Vernon on Main Street as well as High Street. Generally, most of those are hosted by nonprofit organizations for awareness purposes or events. We do have a small fee for those to be put up by nonprofits and businesses, and all of those fees go right back into downtown Mount Vernon. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with what all that Experience Mount Vernon does, but anything that comes from the banner program goes for downtown beautification efforts, such as those flower baskets, litter control, plowing the sidewalks during the wintertime, that type of thing. For 9 months of the year, we have ongoing campaigns from those nonprofits and businesses, but for 3 months, we also offer more individualized campaigns. In May, we have a Memorial Day campaign honoring Knox County veterans who have passed. In November, we also have Veterans Day honoring just Knox County veterans in general. And then in December, we have our holiday banners. I say all of that because recently our banner program has been put into question both by citizens and council as a whole. On August 12th, Mr. Tom Wise approached you about our Memorial Day banners, stating that we would not change our policy and allow him to reserve 14 banners ahead of time for Vietnam veterans who died in combat. As stated, we have 54 banner brackets. If we allow him or this group of banners to be displayed for the next 2 to 3 years, we have to offer that to all veterans or families in Knox County, which we simply cannot do. According to Knox Veteran Services, there are roughly 5,000 living veterans in Knox County, and the number of deceased veterans from all conflicts is much higher than that. I will say that what we have done already for Mr. Tom Wise is that we provided him with a discounted rate for his Veterans Day banners in 2023, and we also hung them free of charge to him for Memorial Day month in 2024. We have provided him with the dates in the process to renew his banners when the renewal period opens up. And since August 12th, we have had many conversations with Mr. Wise, received a rather aggressive letter from him boycotting Experience Mount Vernon, as well as all board members' businesses, and have been subject to a lot of hateful allegations from the community at large. Even through all of that, we've offered to help Mr. Wise find a permanent solution to honor the veterans, such as working with the city to have something placed at American Heritage Park, which would be able to be seen year-round in perpetuity. He has since denied our help, but we are still working to try to find something more permanent to honor those 14 veterans because we do believe that they deserve our respect and honor, and we want to help him to find something that can last forever. However, the situation led to the board's decision to stop offering the opportunity for individuals to have their loved one's picture on a banner. We will still hold the months of May and November to honor our county's veterans through the banner program, but we'll move away from the individual pictures and names to a more general appreciation for various branches of the military and our veterans as a whole. We love our downtown, fully support and appreciate and honor our veterans in our community, and want to continue efforts to help make our downtown a vibrant place to live, work, and visit. And I also want to say that we are very appreciative to the streets department who hangs up the banners on a monthly basis. So we have a great relationship with them. I just wanted to put that out there because they have been amazing to work with in helping us initiate and implement our banner program. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the update because we have received several emails on that, and it's been a hot topic right now. Thank you. The final speaker is Dan Fox, going to give us an update on what he told us at our last council meeting on the airco noise update.
Name and address?
Name and address.
Dan Fox, 507 North Jefferson. And again, I say, I'm glad Airco invested in Mount Vernon. That's a good thing. You wasn't here last time, so I'm going to invite you to come over to our house and sit in our driveway and listen to the noise like I did everybody here. I invited the whole room. How many people showed up?
I came over that morning.
Okay. We're going to have to do better. So they took the compressor out and they put up a garage door clear down at the other end of the building around the corner. It made zero difference in the noise. So, you know, I was told, something came up last time about the decibels of noise, the way they measure noise, and the laws about it. But sometimes you gotta just do what's right. And what's not right is my neighbors and us living in this noise. If you don't come over and experience it, you'll never understand what I'm talking about. So, you're all invited again. All of you are invited. All of you on YouTube are invited. I've been watching that YouTube thing, and I've learned something. I am not a public speaker. So I don't have that much to say. You know, I was told that we live in an industrial area. We don't live in an industrial area. We live in a subdivision. My neighbors and us live in a subdivision. That noise coming out of that industrial area, it don't stop at the property line. It just comes right through. So please come and experience it. The mayor tells me, and Jeff Godke tells me, that Mr. Shugard's a real nice guy. The owner of Airco, I'm assuming. The owner of Airco. So, I hope so. Because we emailed him and we invited him to our home for supper when he's out here on business. We said we'll give you a home cooked meal instead of going to a restaurant. We haven't heard back yet, but at least we're that far. So anyway, that's what I got this week, but I'll be back. I'm learning more about public speaking. Oh, you know what? I got one more thing. So we're in the 2nd ward. Has it always been called a ward? Sounds like a prison or a insane asylum, the mental ward or something, doesn't it? I mean, when I started looking at that, I'm going, that's a little rough. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. All right. We're now going to move to the legislative portion of the meeting. The agenda was adjusted today. Are there any additions or corrections to the adjusted agenda? If not, I'll assume it's approved by consensus. We'll move to the legislative portion. We have the resolutions tonight for 3rd reading. We have one for 2nd reading, which is resolution number 2024-87. Mr. Hill.
Resolution number 2024-87, a resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Sebo.
We'll give it its 2nd reading.
This has to be approved by when before?
It has to be approved by October 1st.
So you needed it done tonight?
Yes, please.
Okay, then I guess we have to do it tonight then. So I would like to suspend the rules requiring 3 separate readings and take resolution number 2024-87 to its 3rd and final reading.
Second.
And moved and second for the suspension of the rules. Any discussion on the suspension? Mr. Hill.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mrs. Seaval,
Yes.
Mr. Severns,
Yes.
Mr. Mahan,
Yes.
Mrs. Woods,
Yes.
Mr. Ruckman,
Yes.
Ms. Keener,
Yes.
The rule is suspended. Ms. Sebo.
Thank you. I move to adopt resolution number 2024-87.
Second.
And moved and second for the adoption of this resolution. Any discussion? Mrs. Sebo.
Thank you. Rob, do you want to talk about it then?
This is a requirement by the revised code that every year we have to talk about the inside millage. And inside millage is millage, and millage, of course, is the amount is levied on real property. And inside millage is anything under 10 is that is money, that is millage that we can put on without going to the ballot. And those come for the general fund, the police pension, and the fire pension. And that's fairly standard, and we do this every year, and we don't have any mills outside of the 10 mil limitation.
Let's just make something clear. There's been some things in the media and Knox pages that this is a tax increase. What this is when the legislature first did millage, they had 10 mills that was unvoted, that was given to public entities, and the county gets some of it, schools get some of it, different entities get some of the 10 mills, and we get a portion of that 10 mills. It's an unvoted millage, but it hasn't changed. The amount of the millage has been the same for years. So the thing on Facebook is saying we're having a big tax increase for the city of Mount Vernon isn't true. And I want to make that clear, and maybe Tammy can explain.
I was just going to say, I've had a lot of calls about this, wanting to know what we're up to. I just want to clarify, we do this every year. The Budget Commission for the county sets who gets how much of that inside millage, am I correct? So I'm not going to say we don't have any control over it. I'm sure we could go down and beg, borrow, and ask them to do whatever, but they decide. The increase is because property values increase. So everybody wants to know why some people went and saw, we did this last year and saw that it had gone up. Well, that's because property values have gone up. So that millage applied to that property value is going to mean more money's coming in.
Every 3 years, they reevaluate the property values, and so that's
through a
what happens.
reappraisal or reevaluation, and so this is not something new, and I've had more calls on this, I think, than anything that's come before council. That kind of came as a surprise, but we've done this every year, so.
Yeah, and when it comes across saying we're having a big tax increase. That sounds like city council passed something that is a big tax increase for the city. This is something we do every year. It's something that this commission, this county commission, has the authority to do. So it's not something that we're just imposing on people. It's something that we've done yearly. Any other questions? I want to make sure that was clear.
Maybe a communications director would help.
Oh, dear.
Get the truth out.
Yeah.
He left on us, didn't he?
Mr. Hill.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mrs. Seabolt.
Yes.
Mr. Severns.
Yes.
Mr. Mahan.
Yes.
Mrs. Woods.
Yes.
Mr. Ruckman.
Yes.
Ms. Keener.
Yes.
Resolution is adopted. And now we move the resolutions for first reading. The first one is resolution number 2024-93. Mr. Hill.
Resolution number 2024-93, a resolution authorizing the Safety Service Director to dispose of vehicles in the police department not needed for public use by the city of Mount Vernon and declaring an emergency.
Mrs. Seabolt.
Thank you. I would like to suspend the rules requiring 3 separate readings and take resolution number 2024-93 to its third and final reading.
Second.
And moving a second for the suspension of the rules. Any discussion on the suspension? Mr. Hill.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mrs. Seabolt.
Yes.
Mr. Severns.
Yes.
Mr. Mahan.
Yes.
Mrs. Woods.
Yes.
Mr. Ruckman.
Yes.
Ms. Keener.
Yes.
The rule is suspended. Mrs. Seabolt.
I move to adopt resolution number 2024-93.
Second.
And moving a second for the adoption of this resolution. Any discussion? Mrs. Seabolt.
Thank you. The chief is going to tell us now all about it.
Yes, fairly simple. We've done it many times. This is how we move our old police cars down the road. We have 2 Ford Explorer police cars that are end of life for our service. They've been replaced last year, and we have found that we do fairly well selling them on the GovDeals website. We got almost $15,000 for the last one, and that money turns right back around, and we reinvest it into new vehicles and new equipment for the police department in the future. So,
How much does a new vehicle cost?
I haven't got the numbers yet, but last year we paid $41,000 for a car, and then there's about another $10,000 in upfitting them. By the time you put a cage and a blue and light bar and the radio mount, computer mount, and so on and so forth. We transfer some equipment over, some equipment we can't, but we're roughly at about $55,000 per car.
Well, this is a significant amount of money we're getting back towards that.
Yes, if we can roll back another $10,000 to $15,000 for each one of these vehicles we sell, that chops the top off the hit next year. So.
Any other questions?
Do we have to have specific equipment in one of these vehicles when they have a canine?
Yes.
And are
Canine,
either of
canine cars
these-
are even more money.
Are either of these one of those specific?
No, these are not canines.
Okay, thank
you. We replaced a canine car last year, and what we did, we always keep a backup. In case one of them breaks, in case one of them goes down, in case we need it for some special duty, we keep a spare car. We saved the canine car that we replaced this year, so our backup car is now a canine car. So in
What do
case
you
we-
have to have different? Canine?
The dog part of it is different. We take out the seat and there's a rubberized platform that goes in there. There's heating and cooling things to make sure the dogs spend a lot of time in the cars.
Automatic openers.
What's that?
The automatic.
Automatic door opener. You push a button and they can let the dog out. There's alarms in the car if it gets over a certain temperature. There's an alarm that goes off in the car. So add another about $5,000 to each canine car for that type of equipment over regular seats.
And dog treats.
And dog treats, yeah.
Big part of the budget.
Yeah.
Mr. Hill.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mrs. Seabolt.
Yes.
Mr. Severns.
Yes.
Mr. Mahan.
Yes.
Mrs. Woods.
Yes.
Mr. Ruckman.
Yes.
Ms. Keener.
Yes.
Resolution is adopted. Next resolution is resolution number 2024-94. Mr. Hill.
Resolution number 2024-94, a resolution to donate surplus Mount Vernon Police Department property to other public entities and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Mahan.
Thank you, sir. I move to suspend the rule requiring 3 separate readings. Take Resolution 2024-94 to its third and final reading.
Second.
Then moved and second for the suspension of the rules. Any discussion on the suspension? Mr. Hill.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mrs. Seaval.
Yes.
Mr. Severns.
Yes.
Mr. Mahan.
Yes.
Mrs. Woods.
Yes.
Mr. Ruckman.
Yes.
Ms. Keener.
Yes.
Rule is suspended. Mr. Mahan.
Thank you, sir. I move to adopt resolution number 2024-94.
Second.
And moved and second for the adoption of this resolution. Any discussion? Mr. Mahan.
Council, you have the list of the property that's being donated, and Chief, I understand that this property, the city departments have already had an opportunity to
Yes.
receive this if they wanted, and in fact, you've received some additional property from
Yes.
other departments for you to get rid of, so congratulations.
We've kind of taken on the mantle of getting rid of all the excess stuff that we've acquired. A lot of this originally was police department equipment, but there's some other things, desks, the ice machine that's on the list there came out of the pool when they replaced it with another one. So what we've done is we said, how are we going to get rid of this stuff? We can do one of two things. We can either try to sell it individually on Gov Deals. We tried to do that with some of the items. You guys probably didn't see it because a lot of the items are less than $1,000, so we don't have to come and ask if it's less than $1,000. We just put it up there. And some of the stuff didn't sell, so now we're stuck with it. I think they tried to sell the ice machine on Gov Deals and nobody wanted it. So we are a member of a organization called the Ohio Small Police Department Association. Typically, it's police departments in the state of Ohio, and it's a membership base, and we are a member of it, Mount Vernon PD is, that is predominantly police departments that are 25 officers and less. We're a little bigger than that at 35 officers or 34 officers. But we're still part of the organization. And what they do is they have basically a donation rack. If a small police department, say the size of Fredericktown or Danville or some of our smaller communities, can't afford an old cage for a car, and we donate one of the small police department association, we can help them through that. Chairs for offices, desks for offices. They'll take a lot of the stuff that nobody else wants. They said they'll take the ice machine. They'll see if they can find a home for the ice machine somewhere that a police department or some organization needs for the ice machine. So while it is outside the county, it still goes to the public good.
In the state.
What's that?
In the state of Ohio.
In the state of Ohio, yes, in the state of Ohio. So you saw the list there. What is there, 100 items on the list there, from anywhere from office chairs to ballistic helmets. We have a couple ballistic helmets that we've replaced, that they aged out over time. Some more police gear, office chairs, desks, the ice machine. I mean, there's a ton of stuff on there. But we thought this was a appropriate way to dispose of stuff and do some spring cleaning, because quite honestly, our building's getting full. And
What happens to stuff you can't give away? I can't imagine there's a big demand for VCR right now.
correct. And at the end of the day, if we don't, and it's past its prime, we will probably rent a dumpster and call a dumpster and dispose of it that way. But
We don't want junk sitting around.
we don't want junk sitting around. But if somebody legitimately can have a good use for it, it should be repurposed before we just chuck it in the dumpster.
All right. Any other questions? Mr. Hill?
Thank you.
Mr. Miller. Mrs. Seaval.
Yes.
Mr. Severns.
Yes.
Mr. Mahan.
Yes.
Mrs. Woods.
Yes.
Mr. Ruckman.
Yes.
Ms. Keener.
Yes.
Resolution is adopted. Next resolution is resolution number 2024-95. Mr. Hill?
Resolution number 2024-95, a resolution authorizing and directing the auditor of the city of Mount Vernon to transfer certain funds.
Mrs. Seabolt?
Thank you. I would like to suspend the rules that require 3 separate readings and take resolution number 2024-95 to its third and final reading.
Second.
Moved and second for the suspension of the rules. Any discussion on the suspension? Mr. Hill.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mrs. Seabolt,
Yes.
Mr. Severns.
Yes.
Mr. Mahan.
Yes.
Mrs. Woods.
Yes.
Mr. Ruckman.
Yes.
Ms. Keener.
Yes.
The rules are suspended. Mrs. Seabolt.
I move to adopt resolution number 2024-95.
Second.
Been moved and second for the adoption of this resolution. Any discussion? Mrs. Seabolt.
Thank you. Mr. Tanner, would you like to talk about this?
Thank you, Mrs. Seabolt. If you look at some of these line items, you'll see that 707-2720 is moving a lot of money from within the same department. Specifically, number 1, plant equipment to maintenance and vehicle. There is a brake repair that's needed within the utilities department, and this is all, at least 1, 2, and 3 is within the utilities department. On number 2, you'll see plant equipment to plant chemicals. The lime contract from last year, when we purchased that, you saw an increase of about $70,000 post-budget. So if you're in the lime business, enjoy the Bahamas. And then finally, from plant equipment to plant services received, we're reappropriating that if we find that there's funds available. We're looking at doing some upgrade opportunities throughout the plant. And then finally, in number 4, we have not, and I want to make a correction there where that says roads and bridges. That should read roads and asphalt. I don't know if that's a Scrivener's situation or if that needs amended. That's small.
That was just a mistake. It's the
Yeah.
right account number. It's just.
Yeah, the account and the
numbers.
figures are correct, but it should be roads and asphalt. But that's coming from capital improvements. $800,000 was appropriated for a salt barn. We are not going to be able to build the salt barn this year, but we should be able to complete a lot of the engineering work on the salt barn. So instead of just letting that sit there in capital improvements, $200,000 of that is going to be reappropriated to that roads and asphalt fund and engineering, so we can complete some of the Dan Emmett projects that are going over costs due to supply shortages and whatnot. So,
Well, that also has the issue with there was some geotechnical work that wasn't done correctly, and so we need to get that fixed to make sure the road does not crumble next year.
so there you go.
Any other questions? Mr. Hill.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mrs. Seabolt,
Yes.
Mr. Severns,
Yes.
Mr. Mahan.
Yes.
Mrs. Woods,
Yes.
Mr. Ruckman,
Yes.
Ms. Keener.
No.
The resolution is adopted 6-1. And the next resolution is resolution number 2024-96. Mr. Hill.
Resolution number 2024-96, a resolution authorizing and directing the Safety Service Director to advertise for bids and enter into contract for certain equipment, materials, supplies, and services, and declaring an emergency.
Mrs. Sabo.
Thank you. Did you want this tonight too?
Please.
I would like to suspend the rules requiring 3 separate readings and take resolution number 2024-96 to its third and final reading.
Second.
And moved and second for suspension of the rules. Any discussion on the suspension? Mr. Hill.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mrs. Seabolt,
Yes.
Mr. Severns,
Yes.
Mr. Mahan.
Yes.
Mrs. Woods,
Yes.
Mr. Ruckman,
Yes.
Ms. Keener.
Yes.
Rule is suspended. Mrs. Sabo.
I move to adopt resolution number 2024-96.
Second.
And moved and second for the adoption of this resolution. Any discussion? Mrs. Sabo.
Mr. Tanner, will you please tell us what this is all about?
Happy to do so. These are annual bids that we go into every year. Water meters, water line repairs, and supplies. That's pretty standard. Fuel with the station pump and fuel bulk. That one's going to be quite interesting this year. We have a contract that comes out of my office with Well, it was with Red Rover in Santmeyer. If you're familiar at all, an organization out of West Virginia called Parmar bought the convenience store portion of Red Rover, but they did not buy the fuel service. And since that, we have had nothing but issues. So Rob and I are going to be putting our heads together a little early on this contract and trying to get out of that contract because it has caused a significant amount of issues. Pretty much every other week we're having trouble. So that's what we're going to be doing. And unfortunately, due to the size of our safety vehicles, we're very limited as to where we can go. So prayers as I negotiate a contract.
But everything here is in budget this year, so.
Yeah, this is an opportunity for me to go out and bid and negotiate the contracts. So this would actually be for 25.
Yeah. This is stuff, we do this every year.
Yeah, this standard every year.
Any other discussion? Mr. Hill?
Mr. Miller? Mrs. Seabolt?
Yes.
Mr. Severns?
Yes.
Mr. Mahan?
Yes.
Mrs. Woods?
Yes.
Mr. Ruckman?
Yes.
Ms. Keener?
Yes.
Resolution is adopted. Next resolution is resolution number 2024-97. Mr. Hill.
Resolution number 2024-97, a resolution authorizing and directing the Safety Service Director of the City of Mount Vernon, Ohio, to enter into contract with Moonlit Soul LLC to lease the property located at 49 Public Square and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Severns.
Yes, I move to suspend the rule requiring 3 separate readings and take Resolution 2024-97 to its third and final reading.
Second.
Been moved and seconded for the suspension of the rules. Any discussion on the suspension? Mr. Hill.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Seabolt?
Yes.
Mr. Severns?
Yes.
Mr. Mahan?
Yes.
Mrs. Woods?
Yes.
Mr. Ruckman?
Yes.
Ms. Keener?
Yes.
The roll is suspended. Mr. Severns.
Yes, I move to adopt Resolution 2024-97.
Second.
Been moved and seconded for the adoption of this resolution. Any discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Severns.
Yes. Tanner,
Let
could
me-
you please fill us in, or Rob, whoever?
Well, Moonlit Soul is currently in that space.
Yeah.
They're reorganizing internally. The partnership is breaking up, and so as part of that, we're just re-executing the lease with the LLC as it's going to be on the same terms that they currently have. But because of the change in the partnership, we needed to authorize the lease.
I believe it's spelled wrong there in the second paragraph, second sentence.
Oh, yeah. We added an extra O.
Yeah.
We'll fix that. Thank you.
How's that deal with the relocation?
They're selling milk now, actually, so it's
Is this one of the
why
ones,
that's spelled
if we
that way.
tear down the facility, if there's a relocation?
Yes, they are still, their lease, because they're a current tenant, that we will relocate them if that's what they desire.
All right.
That doesn't change it because it's still the same company.
Any other questions?
Yes. So this lease is not an extension, it's just you're working with the people that are currently there because they're divvying up ownership.
Yeah,
How long are the leases?
12 months.
They're 12, so they're year-to-year leases?
They're year to year and then they become month to month.
Year-to-year and then month-to-month. Is that way with all of the people that are leasing from the city?
The ones that we are doing, some of the leases that we inherited were month to month. But as we get to the end of those, we're trying to move those to year, or if we're moving, or we're trying to work with people to move them out to find other space, depending on how it goes.
So then, so in cases like, I'll say with the, over at it's the Baltimore
B&O.
B&O Railroad Depot, they don't have a lease currently with us, do they?
They do not.
So legally, that falls into month to month. Is there a reason that they don't have a lease with the city, particularly with, and have all people been notified about possible, I know it's many years down the road, but possible issues to where the city.
So with the B&O and the CA&C now, the ADF is out of a lease, and so currently would be the chamber and the CVB.
Yes. We'll need to put our heads together with the change, we can work both of them in, and then figure out how we're going to go forward with both of those people. As far as the people in the buildings here, we have had a number of different meetings with them, both after we took after we took it, we had at least 2 meetings up here to discuss sort of general timelines, what would happen because we're likely to use both state and federal money, that we will be relocating them, what that looks like, that they will be given the opportunity. We planned on, we have the original sort of planning document shows tenants and businesses in the space, in the places where they currently are, so that it is our intention to try and move those same tenants back into the same spaces after the buildings are reconstructed.
Okay, and so you guys are working on that, and you're working on, you're gonna work with the, over at the Baltimore Depot there for a contract with them? Because I would hate to see, because what it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, if something should happen to where the city needs to move people out of the city building, they need to be in contract with the city to take advantage of those other funds, correct? So in other words, if we didn't have a contract, the city could come along and say, we don't want you here anymore, and moving at them, versus if we say, okay, hey, we're gonna work on this building, we have to move you.
We have to move the people who are in the buildings that we're going to be tearing down. Though that sort of relocation does not apply to the WO&D and the depots.
So if something should happen with those contracts, for some reason the city should need to use those buildings, do we have a mechanism to help them if we all of a sudden say, hey, you guys gotta move?
We do not, but we can certainly discuss that.
Any other discussion? Mr. Hill?
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Seabolt?
Yes.
Mr. Severns?
Yes.
Mr. Mahan?
Yes.
Mrs. Woods?
Yes.
Mr. Ruckman?
Yes.
Ms. Keener?
Yes.
Resolution is adopted. Next resolution is 2024-98. Mr. Hill?
Resolution number 2024-98, a resolution authorizing and directing the auditor of the City of Mount Vernon to pay bills pursuant to Section 5705.41D, then and now certification.
Mrs. Sabo?
Thank you. I would like to suspend the rules that require 3 separate readings and take resolution number 2024-98 to its third and final reading.
Second.
Been moved and second for the suspension of the rules. Any discussion on the suspension? Mr. Hill?
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Seabolt?
Yes.
Mr. Severns?
Yes.
Mr. Mahan?
Yes.
Mrs. Woods?
Yes.
Mr. Ruckman?
Yes.
Ms. Keener?
Yes.
The roll is suspended. Mrs. Sabo?
I move to adopt resolution number 2024-98.
Second.
Been moved and second for the adoption of this resolution. Any discussion? Mrs. Sabo?
Thank you. Tanner, we've got some then and now.
Yep. So, with number one, let's focus on number one first here. Mr. Scott and I had discussed probably since April how this bill would be paid. There were a multitude of lines that we anticipated paying it out of. That never got completed. So upon his departure, I just decided to pay it completely out of my services received line. Number two, frankly, did not anticipate a final bill from McDaniel CPA. Nevertheless, it had to be paid. So there it is. Number three was an interesting situation. This is a bill from early 2023, I believe.
Well, yeah, sort of.
Yeah, less is more. We have paid a lot of bills recently, very recently, and this is one that we found.
Yeah.
And we have paid it.
We haven't ordered from Staples since early 2023, and we're not sure why it wasn't paid back in 2023. But when our new auditor took office, we learned that there was a collection notice for this, and we had some difficulty figuring out where this bill might have come from, and so to stop the collection notice, we have asked to pay it.
Any other questions? Mr. Hill?
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Seabolt?
Yes.
Mr. Severns?
Yes.
Mr. Mahan?
Yes.
Mrs. Woods,
Yes.
Mr. Ruckman,
Yes.
Ms. Keener,
Yes.
Resolution is adopted. Next resolution is resolution of 2024-99. Mr. Hill.
Resolution number 2024-99, a resolution authorizing and directing the auditor of the City of Mount Vernon to make supplemental appropriations.
Mrs. Sebo.
Thank you. I would like to suspend the rules that require 3 separate readings and take resolution number 2024-99 to its third and final reading.
Second.
Been moved and seconded for the suspension of the rules. Any discussion on the suspension? Mr. Hill.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mrs. Seaval,
Yes.
Mr. Severance,
Yes.
Mr. Mahan,
Yes.
Mrs. Woods,
Yes.
Mr. Ruckman,
Yes.
Ms. Keener,
Yes.
The rule is suspended. Mrs. Sebo.
Thank you. I move to adopt resolution number 2024-99.
Second.
Been moved and seconded for the adoption of this resolution. Any discussion? Mrs. Sebo.
Thank you. Now the fire department and safety.
Yep, this was a BWC grant for safety equipment, and I believe the fire department used this for, I think, some extraction tools, and the Public Works Department used this for a platform to work on tractors and other grass mowing equipment. I think they have a word for that. Lawnmowers. There you go.
Any other discussion? Mr. Hill.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mrs. Seaval,
Yes.
Mr. Severance,
Yes.
Mr. Mahan,
Yes.
Mrs. Woods,
Yes.
Mr. Ruckman,
Yes.
Ms. Keener,
Yes.
Resolution is adopted. Next resolution is resolution number 2024-100. Mr. Hill.
resolution number 2024-100, an ordinance, it should be a resolution. Let me just check, that's a scrivener's error that will be corrected. A resolution naming the grounds surrounding the CA&C Depot, American Heritage Park, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Miller.
We'll give this its first reading.
Yes.
And at the next, in 2 weeks, at the next council meeting, I'd like a Parks Committee meeting for like 15 minutes to allow the CVB a chance to come in and talk about what's going on there with the plan to finalize this at that meeting.
This resolution receives its first reading. Final resolution of this evening is resolution number 2024-101. Mr. Hill.
Resolution number 2024-101, a resolution authorizing and directing the Safety Service Director to accept a one-time community investment grant in the amount of $2 million for the construction of the new police department building and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Mahan.
Thank you, sir. I move to suspend the rule requiring 3 separate readings. Take resolution 2024-101 to its third and final reading.
Second.
Been moved and seconded for the suspension of the rules. Any discussion on the suspension? Mr. Hill.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mrs. Seaval,
Yes.
Mr. Severance,
Yes.
Mr. Mahan,
Yes.
Mrs. Woods,
Yes.
Mr. Ruckman,
Yes.
Ms. Keener,
Yes.
The rule is suspended. Mr. Mahan.
Sir, I move to adopt resolution number 2024-101.
Second.
Been moved and seconded for the adoption of this resolution. Any discussion? Mr. Mahan.
Council, we had a committee meeting on this. Are there any additional questions?
I guess I'm just sitting here struggling with something that was added today and we discussed for 15 minutes for $2 million. I'm really struggling with this one. Not that I don't think it's a worthy cause and it's awesome we got the money, but these last minute things are starting to throw me for a zinger.
I would add, as I expressed that committee, is I'm for building a police department. And I truly, from working in state government, understand the discussions that took place by Senator Brenner. That's a lot of effort, work on his behalf. I feel bad that it's tarnished a little bit, the fact that the city did not get this taken care of at a sooner date. Which I'm glad it's gotten caught, because it would be embarrassing if it did not get caught.
Can I just ask,
I
there's,
just think it should be, it's important to build a police department, and the $2 million is a wonderful gift, but there's a lot of stuff that we just need to get, we need to get certain departments on the ball to get stuff done.
can I just ask to give me some peace of mind here? There is nothing in this grant that we're signing and agreeing to that says in the next, whatever period of time, this project will be complete. We're not signing anything that we've accepted the money for the purpose of, and it doesn't commit us to anything further.
So this is excess ARPA dollars. So essentially, if we don't complete it in the allotted time, we just return it back to the federal government.
And it doesn't require us to use it strictly on construction. We will be able to use it on any part of the project.
Okay.
And
It's
that includes,
pretty unencumbered, which is,
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Mr. Hill?
Mr. Miller,
No.
Mrs. Seabolt,
Yes.
Mr. Severns,
Yes.
Mr. Mahan,
Yes.
Mrs. Woods,
No.
Mr. Ruckman,
Yes.
Ms. Keener.
Yes.
I vote 5-2, the ordinance is adopted. I'm sorry, the resolution is adopted. Now I move to ordinances. We have no ordinances for third reading. We have one for second reading. That's ordinance number 2024-38. Mr. Hill.
Ordinance number 2024-38, an ordinance authorizing and directing the auditor of the city of Mount Vernon to create a new fund to be named TIF Upper Gilchrist Road Fund pursuant to ORC 5709.09D, ORC 5705.10C, and declaring an emergency.
Mrs. Sebo.
Thank you. I would like to suspend the rules requiring 3 separate readings and take ordinance number 2024-38 to its third and final reading.
Second?
Been moved and seconded for the suspension of the rules. Any discussion on the suspension? Mr. Hill.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mrs. Seabolt,
Yes.
Mr. Severns,
Yes.
Mr. Mahan,
Yes.
Mrs. Woods,
Yes.
Mr. Ruckman,
Yes.
Ms. Keener.
Yes.
Rule is suspended. Mrs. Sebo.
I move to adopt ordinance number 2024-38.
Second?
Been moved and seconded for the adoption of this resolution, ordinance. Any discussion? Mrs. Sebo.
Anna, would you like to talk about this TIF?
So at the last meeting, we created the TIF, but we failed to create the piggy bank to put the money in. So let's go ahead and do that.
Any other discussion? Mr. Hill.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mrs. Seabolt,
Yes.
Mr. Severns,
Yes.
Mr. Mahan,
Yes.
Mrs. Woods,
Yes.
Mr. Ruckman,
Yes.
Ms. Keener.
Yes.
The ordinance is adopted. Now we go move to ordinances for first reading. The first one is ordinance number 2024-40. Mr. Hill.
Ordinance number 2024-40, an ordinance to change the direction of travel on West Burgess and West Hamtramck Streets and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Severance.
Yes, I move to suspend the rule requiring 3 separate readings and take ordinance 2024-40 to its third and final reading.
Second.
Been moved and seconded for the suspension of rules. Any discussion on the suspension? Mr. Hill.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mrs. Seabolt,
Yes.
Mr. Severns,
Yes.
Mr. Mahan,
Yes.
Mrs. Woods,
Yes.
Mr. Ruckman,
Yes.
Ms. Keener.
Yes.
The rule is suspended. Mr. Severance.
Yes, I move to adopt ordinance 2024-40.
Second.
Been moved and seconded for adoption of this ordinance. Any discussion? Mr. Severance.
Yes, Mr. Tanner, would you please kind of fill us in on where we're at with the dates, how long we've had each of these moving
Sure.
away?
Yeah, so West Burgess was announced on July 17th. That's a 90-day period, which will end on October 15th. That was just one block between Main and Mulberry. That has caused 0 issues, and some of the residents on that street are very excited to have that continue. So they have urged me to urge you to change that permanently. That was not our intention to change that permanently, but it is one block, and we don't see why that it should go back. And I'd like to add that a lot of this, the reason that these are one-way streets, was due to the school traffic that existed there, and that is obviously no longer the case. The other, West Hamtramck, goes from North Sandusky all the way up to North Main. That started September 12th. However, we announced these simultaneously at a council meeting prior to even the July 17th date. We've communicated both with PD and the Streets Department and with Mr. Mazza over at 301 North Mulberry His construction crew actually helped us with flipping the bricks with all the paint and everything. We made sure that they were on West Hamtramck on that block down to North Sandusky. They were using that as off-street parking, or on-street parking, I should say. They had the opportunity for off-street parking, so we made sure to communicate that. There was a handicap spot on that street that is no longer necessary, but we even when it was still an issue, we made sure to communicate that with the individual with the apartment that she was with and that tenant. So along the way, we've been communicating with the residents that are most immediately impacted. We've got the signage up. We've communicated with PD. There have been no issues. I know Mrs. Woods asked, I believe, if there would be, some permanent signage, if we'd be painting or anything. Yes, but not until it's finalized. I'm not going to, of course, paint anything and then you tell me to take it back.
Okay.
So.
Any other discussion? Mr. Hill?
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Seavolt?
Yes.
Mr. Severns?
Yes.
Mr. Mahan?
Yes.
Mrs. Woods?
Yes.
Mr. Ruckman?
Yes.
Ms. Keener?
Yes.
The ordinance is adopted. The final ordinance for this evening is ordinance number 2024-41. Mr. Hill?
An ordinance establishing compensation pay grades for supervisory and professional personnel and declaring an emergency.
Mrs. Woods?
Thank you. We'll give its first reading this evening.
This ordinance received its first reading, and that concludes the legislative portion of the meeting. Now we move to remarks from administration. Mayor Starr.
Thank you, Mr. President and Council. Was there something else, sir?
Could I have a question about that resolution? Is there a way I can do that legally? But before the mayor talks about this, 2024-41?
We've already voted on it.
No, I
No.
gave you
Oh,
the
oh,
first
she-
reading.
Oh, no.
She just did first
That's
reading.
up for discussion at our next meeting.
Okay, all right.
We'll talk later.
I had some stuff on, I
Okay.
wanted something to ask.
Okay.
Okay. Mayor Starr.
Thank you, Mr. President and Council. Nothing this evening, sir.
Mrs. Haggis.
Nothing further.
Whoa. 2 for
Red
2.
letter day.
Mr. Stoller. Mr. Braun.
I want to thank Samantha Ramsire, who is our current acting auditor. She has stepped into the lion's den and has done an amazing amount of work helping us to dig out of a lot of issues that we have found and helping us get onto hopefully a much more solid footing as we move forward into the appointment of a full-time auditor who will serve until the next municipal election in 2025. Thank you.
After the committee votes on Thursday night, how long before that person takes office?
The committee will set the effective date of that person's appointment.
Their anticipation is September 30th.
Thank you. Mr. Severns.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Mr. Miller.
Yes, I do. A little bit ago on resolution 2024-101, I voted no, although I did say I support building a police department. The reason is to make a point, is I'm willing to make tough decisions on the future of the city and its financial future. Do I believe we're financially sound? Most definitely. We are going through a tough time with some of the issues we've had with the past auditor, and I thank Samantha and the staff of that office for working through that to get that done. But at the same time, I would ask that the city work through, because times have changed, economics have changed. The courthouse and police department, that is all a very large, very scary, very complicated thing for this city to go through. And it's a very expensive thing. And we have to be operating on all cylinders. All departments have to be operating on all cylinders to accomplish that. And council and the public need to make sure that they are kept up to speed on the entire process of how that goes along for its design and planning phases. And so I just want people to know I'm for building a police department. And believe me, for Senator Brenner to give $2 million for this project, because it's a worthy project, I mean what I said about I'm glad it was caught, but the city needs to operate on all cylinders to pull this off, because you're talking sometime down the road, probably 5, 10 years, who knows the timing of it, a new courthouse. We have a legal obligation and a public safety obligation just from the talk of the courthouse. We have to provide a courthouse. It's the city's responsibility by law. The judge has to have a place to operate. That's a requirement by law. At the same time, we need to have safe buildings, facilities for the public and staff. So that is a priority, but it's an expensive priority for the city to move. You need to have a place to move the police officers out. Before you can tear anything down, just so the community knows, everyone that's in those city buildings that we've talked about have to be moved somewhere else. So that's why I had questions about the leases and about other places, because if we should have to move city employees out of where their current offices are, we may need to move them to other city buildings where other people that may not have a contract with the city are at. And I just want to make sure that they're also covered and are treated fairly in this entire process. But this is a big, complicated process, but I want to stress the entire city and all departments need to be operating together on all cylinders to pull this off, because this is a huge task. It weighs on my mind almost every day. And I think probably many council members think about this. So that's all. But I'm for a police department, but I am very happy that someone caught that for that vote tonight. But the fact is I am, just like I talked about with the Edgewood Road stuff, I'm willing to make tough decisions, whether it makes people upset or not. I mean, I have the best interest of the community at heart. I think everyone in the city does, probably slightly different ways of getting there. But I can't stress enough, we need to operate on all cylinders for move this big project. That's all I have.
Yeah, Mrs. Sable.
Thank you. I want to say, since we have some people here tonight, that the baskets downtown are beautiful this year. The flower baskets are really outstanding. So I want to just say you guys have done a great job there with the experience. That's all. Thank you.
Mrs. Woods.
I just want to say I'm really struggling with the stuff that is added on the day of the meeting. And part of it is on me. I saw that email, saw that email today at 3:30. I know it was put out a little bit before noon, but saw it at 3:30. I'm not so much concerned about me not having time to prepare for a change like that. I just don't think it's fair to the community who thinks they saw an agenda on Friday and then it got changed on them. I just think we need to be more mindful of that. That's what I'm struggling with. I had something else. Oh, the then and nows. I'm just going to give my treasurer's then and now speech. I'm sure you've heard this before. It is just as much the responsibility of the person who's making that purchase to make sure that purchase order is in place before they spend that money as it is on whoever is going to be sitting down in that office, because they will struggle with that just like the last person did. So if that could be communicated to people, I think that would go a long ways. That's all. Thank you.
That's been an issue for years. It used to be a $1,000 limit, now it's a $3,000 limit. It's still an issue. Mr. Mahan.
Thanks, sir. I do have a couple items. I want to thank the folks from Experience Mount Vernon for coming and kind of giving us an update on that and continuing to work with Mr. Wise through this process, and just for your work in general. And I think it's a good example of trying to think win-win. We can't always do everything that people want, but we can at least work together to find a way to go back to the old Covey principle of win-win, and I appreciate that. Congrats to the Mount Vernon Fire Department, who took first place in the Heroes softball tournament and beat those folks from the Ohio Highway Patrol. And also congrats to the Mount Vernon Police Department, who did defeat the County Sheriff's Office. So that's good for us to know. Thank you for the department heads for the reports. I think it's important that we continue to get those, and I appreciate that. I support the concept of a communications person. I don't know what if a director is the title. I would support an internship with one of the colleges or universities to help with some communications to the public. Maybe that would be a way to start that. And I am very pleased to get this money from the state and thankful so we can get that new police department. It's been a long time coming, and I concur that we need to be careful as council and careful as city to make sure that gets done. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mrs. Keener.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to say thanks to our senator, Mr. Brenner, for the work that he did for those dollars. I know that I had several conversations with him around that time period about the importance of work that we were doing here. So I thank him for his effort on that. And I'd like to thank whoever had the JROTC come in. I had no idea my son was going to be here. So that was super fun. I found out at like 3 o'clock today. But just to reiterate, their Raider competition is at Ariel Foundation Park on October 12th. It starts at 9 a.m. and it goes all day. It's a really good time to go out and see what those kids have been working on. But thanks to whoever coordinated that. And that's all.
Thank you. Mr. Reckman.
Yes, sir. I appreciate everybody being here this evening and speaking. I want to give a special shout out to Experience Mount Vernon. You guys coming out and updating us on that. Really appreciate that, and really just appreciate all of the work that you do in the community. And that is something that I know we all highly value. And just having recently been appointed to the board as a non-voting member, it's been interesting to learn more about it and to see everything that you guys accomplish and everything that goes on in the background to make even something, you would think something so short as a First Friday, the amount of organization is just incredible. So I really do appreciate that. And also wanted to thank everybody who participated and was involved in some of the grants that we got on the West End. So heard about that. We got, I believe, over $1 million worth of grants. We have $500,000 that we got going into critical infrastructure, and also had the neighborhood revitalization grant, which is going to be $750,000 in our ward. And that's just, we're very excited. And I know it's been a long time moving the football down the field to actually score that touchdown. So I just want to appreciate all of the hours, the time, and the effort that went into that. Just express our gratitude on the West End for that. So that is all, sir.
Thank you. And thank you, Cheryl. I know you'll be listening this late. You're in Centerburg right now at another meeting, but she'll be listening to this meeting and reporting on it. And the other media that does that, appreciate them reporting. This communication, as Mr. Minster said, is important, and transparency is important. So those are very important things that we communicate with the public, and appreciate us being able to have this online at mountVernonHigh.org. And so I know people are watching, because we get texts during the meeting saying if something's not working right, they let us know. So I appreciate that happening. That being said, I'd call for adjournment.
So move.
Second.
And moved and second, we adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We are adjourned.